Frozen bank accounts have become a huge problem in New York State. And to get a sense of the scale of the problem, you only have to look at the number of debt collection cases that have been filed in our courts. So for example, in New York City in 2006, we saw 320,000 cases being filed. 80% of those cases, about 255,000, ended up in default judgments. I've spoken to advocates and attorneys from Albany, from Buffalo, from Syracuse, from Long Island, and I know that one of the main problems that they see in their offices is seniors and people with disabilities who are coming to them because they have no access to their benefits because their account has been frozen by a debt collector.
So I grew up in New York. I went to school here in New York. I worked here in New York. I went to the military from New York, came back to New York, went back to work.
I spent 22 years with the post office. I started in '72 and I had to leave in '94 because unfortunately my wife had what they call an aneurysm.
The clients who we normally receive calls from and who we meet with and represent are, for the most part, disabled in some way or elderly.
I was a security officer for 5 years with an elite security company. I was told that they got an incident over in one of the buildings, 370. The perpetrator started making all kind of movements with his hands in his pockets. I was standing on the left side of the perpetrator. Next thing I heard a gunshot, and I was shot in the right foot. I'm still not able to work because I do not have complete balance on my right leg, and I'm developing arthritis.
My disability consists of venous insufficiency in my right leg, which is where the veins don't pump enough blood, so the swelling gets real bad. I have arthritis in my knees and my back, and I also suffer from high blood pressure. I get $780 a month for disability retirement. My wife gets $53 a month. She's worse off than I am, but she only gets $53 a month. And I get, I think, $12 SSI. That's the only money that's going into that account.
So certain forms of income are exempt from collection. So certain federal benefits as well as state benefits, Social Security, veterans benefits, supplemental security income, disability. Under state law, 90% of a person's income from the last 60 days, as well as public assistance, pensions, other kinds of benefits, income that's, in terms of public policy, is supposed to be protected from collection, because the idea is that those forms of income are to be used basically for subsistence.
I got my my Social Security money going direct deposit. I went to pay my rent, and they told me that my funds were frozen.
I proceeded to the ATM, and it said declined. Please contact your financial institution.
I went to the ATM machine and said no funds available. And I know my check was direct deposit there. So I went to the bank, and the bank told me my account was frozen.
So at our office, we have received literally hundreds of calls from people whose exempt income is frozen in their bank accounts. Every day we talk to people who don't have money to buy food, can't buy medicine, are worried about how they're going to be able to pay the rent because their income, which is supposed to be exempt, has been frozen by a debt collector.
Well, I don't have to tell you that my heart was racing, my head was racing, and I started crying.
I was broke. I couldn't eat the way I normally eat when I get my check. I have my little money in the bank. And I couldn't wear what I want to wear. It was hard for me, like, I want to go to laundry, wash some clothes. I didn't have the money to go wash.
I've actually had to turn to a kosher food pantry to supplement my food.
I go borrow money from my oldest son to pay the bills, whatever bills that were outstanding. He said, well, Carolyn was able to free that and I was able to pay the rent. Otherwise, I'd have been in real hot water.
Once an account has been frozen, it becomes very difficult to get that account released. The person literally has to prove to the debt collector that the account contains only funds that are exempt from collection. The other option is for the person to actually go to court which they have to do without a lawyer and follow a very Byzantine, complicated procedure, which takes weeks and it sometimes even takes months in order to get the account released.
I tried to get the situation cleared up with the bank, but they told me I got called the collector, the collection agency. So I called them, but the line busy, or they put me on hold. I just got fed up and got tired of it. I was hurting. I ain't got no money now. I had no money.
If you are really living paycheck to paycheck, and so many of our clients are elderly or disabled and don't really have a network of family or friends who they can necessarily rely on financially, it's absolutely devastating.
You're in debt and living on a fixed income. You cannot afford 1 penny out of that, and nobody should have to pay 1 penny out of their monies that come from support from the government. As it is hard to maintain any kind of decent way of life on $700 a month. That's why I'm sitting in this apartment. I'm sharing an apartment with another lady. The term is doubling up. I'm awaiting a certificate for housing. So currently, I'm not even living in my own apartment.
It was actually terrifying because we could have lost the apartment. It was a combination of these things with my wife's illness and everything that's happened to me, and to have this happen on top of everything else was like an unnecessary blow.
Without doing something, without changing the law somehow, I think this is only going to get worse, and we're just going to get more calls and more people who are, desperate.
Yeah, as a lifelong New Yorker, who's worked for the federal government, for the state government, and for the city government, I don't think that we should be treated in such a manner, especially when we're disabled, that our money should be frozen in such a manner.
Especially if they just got a few dollars in there, $100, $1,000. That ain't no money to take from a person. They need some kind of money to live off of, to eat.
Under our current laws, it's our most frail citizens, the ones who are most in need of our protection, who are the most vulnerable.
Poor people especially, who have no protection. Who's here to protect us against, the big corporations or these debt collectors that are just stopping payment on our funds, and our money they're not even supposed to touch.